All right, today we're going to dive into something, well, pretty radical. It's a new theory of you, developed over more than 30 years by clinical psychologist Dr. Michael Lukens. He calls it the physics of emotioning. And trust me, it's a framework that's going to challenge pretty much everything you think you know about who you are and what makes you tick. So let's start by tackling the biggest assumption of all. So let me ask you something right off the bat. Are you really in the driver's seat of your own mind? I mean, we all feel like we are, right? We feel like we're the ones calling the shots, making the choices, steering our lives. But what if that powerful feeling of being in charge is just a really, really convincing illusion? Okay, so before we can build up this new model of who you are, we kind of have to tear the old one down. Or at least, take a good hard look at its shaky foundation. According to Dr. Lukens' work, our whole understanding of ourselves is built on at least 3 huge myths, and they are seriously overdue for an upgrade.
First up, and this is the big one, free will. The myth is that we consciously look at a menu of options and, just choose one. But this framework says our actions aren't freely chosen at all. Instead, they're the inevitable result of the unique structure of our personal world. That feeling of choice, that's just a story your brain tells you after the decision has already been made. Wild, right?
Myth number 2 is that classic age-old battle, reason versus passion, head versus heart. We're taught that logic is this pure heroic force that's supposed to conquer our messy feelings. But what if that's not how it works at all? The physics of emotioning argues that even your most rational thinking is actually fueled by an emotion, like curiosity or the desire to solve a puzzle. They aren't 2 separate forces fighting it out. They're just different points on the exact same spectrum. And the third myth, the idea that thoughts cause feelings. You think a sad thought, so you feel sad. Seems pretty obvious. Well, this model flips that completely on its head. It suggests our feelings are the real prime movers. They're the signals that guide us toward our goals. And our thoughts? They don't cause the process, they just participate. They're kind of like a backseat driver, narrating the trip, but definitely not holding the steering wheel. So, okay, if free will, reason, and our thoughts aren't really in charge, then what the heck is? Well, this is where we get to the absolute heart of this theory. There's this one fundamental process that's driving, everything we do. And that process is emotioning. Yeah, with an ing at the end. See, this isn't just about emotions as a state. This is a verb, an action. And this concept completely redefines the engine of our behavior. It's not some random mood, but a super precise cause and effect chain that kicks off the very instant you decide something matters. Let's walk through this because it's super important. First, you create meaning. You just single something out from the background, a person, an idea, a song, whatever. Second, the moment you do that, bam, a relationship is formed between you and that thing. Third, that relationship automatically creates a goal, maybe to get closer to it or avoid it or protect it. And finally, feelings emerge. And they're not random. They are specific signals telling you exactly how you're doing on the path to that goal. This quote from Dr. Lukens just nails it. It gives our feelings a whole new job description. See, in this framework, they aren't these random moods we just have to suffer through or push down. No way. They are functional. They are purposeful. They are basically pure data. Here's a great way to think about it. Your feelings are like this incredibly advanced GPS inside you. Seriously. They're constantly pinging you with location data, telling you you are here in relation to something that you've decided is important. So anxiety, joy, anger, they're not just noise. They're just different coordinates on your own personal map. Okay, and this is where things get really, really mind-bending. Because if everything starts with meaning, that leads to a huge question. Who's creating all that meaning? And the answer, according to this theory, is you. You're the universe creator. Most of us grow up with this idea of objectivism, right? That there's one single solid reality out there, and we're all just looking at it. But this model is deeply constructivist. It argues that every single one of us is actively building our own personal universe, a totally subjective reality made up only of the things we've given meaning to. Get this, we're not all living in the same world. We're each living in our own unique multiverse. And I know what you might be thinking, but wait, I can be objective. Well, check out this brilliant little illustration from Dr. Lukens' work, the no point of view chair. The only person who could sit in it is someone with no point of view. But here's the catch. The second you decide to sit, The moment you choose to engage, you have created a perspective. Pure neutral objectivity? It's literally impossible. So, who is that I that thinks it's being objective? Well, Dr. Lukens makes this really crucial distinction. There's the system, that's the whole you, the organism that actually acts and feels. And then there's the observer. That's the voice in your head, the narrator telling stories about what the system is doing. Think of the observer as the news reporter, not the CEO making the decisions. And that brings us to a massive point here. The story your observer tells you, that internal monologue you have going all day, it's just that, a story. It's a representation. It's a map. It is not the territory itself. And here's the kicker. Sometimes that map can be just plain wrong. Okay, so this is all fascinating theory. But how can we actually use it? What's the practical application? Well, this is where we get into understanding your own personal guidance system. We can think of our minds as a meaning navigation system, or MNS for short. It's basically your internal operating system, and it uses very specific feelings as crystal clear signals, each one pointing to a very specific fundamental human goal. And this is where the theory becomes an incredibly practical tool for your actual life. Instead of seeing emotions as problems, we can see them as data. So fear, that's not a flaw, it's a signal pointing you toward the goal of safety. Anger isn't just you being negative, it's your system signaling that a boundary, your territory, needs defending. Every single feeling has a distinct functional purpose, guiding you toward what you need. This also gives us a totally new way to look at chronic moods. That persistent anxiety or lingering anger, that isn't a disorder, it's an open circuit. It's a signal from your navigation system that's been trying to deliver a message about an unresolved goal, but the message just hasn't been received and acted on yet. So let's pull back and look at the big picture. This framework gives us some profound themes to chew on. 1. We live in a universe driven by personal meaning. 2. Emotion is the engine, not the exhaust. 3. We are all the architects of our own reality. And 4. It points to a new kind of personal responsibility. Not for choosing our actions, but for understanding the meanings we create that drive them. And all of this leads to 3 potentially life-changing takeaways. First, you are a system that is fundamentally driven by emotioning. Thinking is just a participant, not the commander. Second, you don't experience reality directly. You live inside a story, a personal multiverse that you are constantly creating. And third, and maybe most importantly, your emotions aren't the problem to be solved. They are the solution, a guidance system pointing you toward what truly matters to you. To put it as simply as I possibly can, your emotions are not a bug, they are the central feature. They aren't a glitch in your operating system. They are the operating system. And that leaves us with one final question to take away from all this. If your feelings right now are precise signals from your own internal GPS, what's their message? What destination are they trying to guide you toward?